Hey everybody, it's GauntletX, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing another remix draft of the Remix Draft Artifacts format. Without further ado, let's get into the pack one pick one. Pretty easy Steel Overseer, because there are tons of artifacts in the set, as you can tell by the name. This is going to be able to put a +1/+1 counter on basically your entire board if you draft your deck right, and there are some cards that are really synergistic with +1/+1 counters, like the green-white decks, as you can see on Conclave Mentor. So really cool way to start things off and see what direction we'll go from there. Pick number 2, one of the best ways to use Steel Overseer is going to be with some modular artifact creatures, because Steel Overseer wants you to play almost exclusively artifact creatures so that your whole board gets the counters when you're tapping him, and all of the modular cards are artifact creatures that then move all of their +1/+1 counters to something else when they die. So normally I probably wouldn't take Arcbound Tracker quite this high. I could go for like Essence Extraction here for pretty cheap removal, maybe Oltec Cloud Guard for 2 creatures off 1 spell, but I think Arcbound Tracker is still one of the better cards in the pack because modular is very powerful in a set with so many artifact creatures, and when it synergizes so well with Steel Overseer, I think it gets the nod over the other two. For pick 3, we don't have any modular options here, but we've got an artifact creature with Ashnod's Harvester or Arcanist's Owl. The Arcanist's Owl would be really hard to cast if we go blue-red or white-red, though, because we would need 4 sources of whichever color we pair with our red alongside Arcbound Tracker, so I think I'd almost rather just take the really cheap removal of the Voltage Surge here and stick to pure red for now. But Ashnod's Harvester is a super nice option too. You don't have to play black for that card to be decent, and it's really easy to splash in the Unearth cost because obviously you never need that mana. It's just an added bonus if you do manage to hit it off a treasure or something. So yeah, Harvester or Voltage Surge, but I'll go for the Surge here. Pick 4, we get another modular card. This one is quite a bit weaker, the Arcbound Whelp. Well, I don't know, the Fire Breathing ability is pretty good. It's just being a 4 mana 2/2. It's a pretty small stat line, but if you get enough modular cards, they do all stack together pretty well, where they keep juicing up the newest one you cast, and you keep moving the counters all over your board, so Arcbound Whelp could still be pretty good. I do like Metallic Rebuke quite a bit. Really easy to have a clue token or treasure token on board. Make this a very cheap counter spell since you can tap those artifacts to help cast it. Captured Light by Lagax is also probably the best removal spell in the format, but it's also the most narrow since you have to be specifically green-white. But shutting off an attacker or blocker and buffing your board with 2 +1/+1 counters is pretty absurd, so I do think that card's quite incredible. But it's not really where we're at here, starting with 2 red cards. For pick 5, there are more modular creatures, if not all of the modular creatures being in red-white. I know that there's definitely more modular creatures in red and white, so I'm pretty happy to take Thraben Inspector. Because if we want to try to draft almost everything with modular, then that's the color pair we're likely to get in, considering there are a lot of white creatures with modular. And Thraben Inspector is just a great value play up front. You get some power toughness to the board while being able to draw another card. Pretty happy with that, but Iron Apprentice, obviously another option that's pretty good with Steel Overseer and modular creatures. Pick 6, there's a big 5 mana modular creature, or the 4 mana modular flyer. There's also mana fixing with Renegade Map or Chromatic Star that are fine. Glorifier's okay if you're like green-white specifically, where you just want to put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on the board. You don't necessarily care about them being on artifact creatures, but with the modular theme, you do care about specifically artifact creatures, so Glorifier is less good here. On the Jab's good if you're really aggressive and you have some ways to play multiple creatures off of 1 spell, but we don't have any of that yet. I'll just take the Arcbound Whelp there. Pick 7, Voltage Surge, pretty nice towards red here, but Gearseeker Serpent, pick 7's also pretty wild. Very easy to cast this for a very cheap mana cost as a 4 mana 5/6 or better. It's completely absurd, and it's not that hard to get there. There's 3 artifacts on board to make it only 4 mana. I think Gearseeker Serpent's busted enough to take this as a sign to push towards blue, maybe blue-red instead of white-red. Pick 8, Welding Sparks is excellent removal in the sets. It is a 3-mana instant that deals 3 plus the number of artifacts you control to any creature. So pretty much kills any creature for 3-mana instant speed, which is really good. I do like Upriser Renegade as well in a modular deck, because it's getting +C+0 for each creature you have with a counter on it. So this can be a really big threat for cheap, but Welding Sparks is just more flexible, just being really good on the defensive or on the aggressive, or just a variety of positions. Take a Renegade map here. I'm not super pumped about Volshock Splitter, but it's fine. Rather just speculate on fixing there. Bone Splitter is pretty solid, just one of the most aggressive, cheapest equipments, or we can dive deeper into blue with a really great tempo play with Waylaying Pirates. I'll actually take Waylaying Pirates here. Pick 11, Cogwork Wrestler's great. Combat Trick on a stick, so you leave an artifact permanent on board after you play your combat trick to try to win the fight. And that's good for multiple reasons. By leaving an artifact on board, you're helping get to the affinity for Gearseeker Serpent. It's also an artifact creature for Steel Overseer. Plenty of good synergies for the Cogwork Wrestler. And let's see what we get for pack 2, pick 1. Not much. Urza's not actually that great in this format. Like, it's decent to help you cast most of your spells cheaper, but that's about it. You're pretty much never going to meld Urza. It's possible, but really rare. There's only one rare in every pack in this format. So Urza's fine. Urza not being an artifact himself is quite a bit of a downside. There's not too much else in this pack. It'd be perfectly reasonable to take the Urza. But we could take, like, Archaeomender Mender is a really great value play, and since we are going to be aggressive here in blue-red, we probably have some artifact creatures in grave in time for this card. On, like, turn 4 or 5 or something. Could also take the Ancestral Blade to try to be red-white equipment, but I think blue has looked more open than the white, mainly because the Gearseeker Serpent was so late, but we'll see. Pack 2, pick 2, Rebel Salvo. More just really big removal for cheap. We'll take that. Pick 3, another Voltage Surge. So Kenzen Smelter is very fun. Getting to turn any clue tokens and artifacts into 3/1s. Clue tokens and treasure tokens and stuff. We don't have a lot of those, actually. We've got the one off of Thraben Inspector. I mean, I guess we could just sack a modular creature and then make a 3/1 and move its counters to something else. It's not terrible, but I don't think this deck actually uses Smelter very well compared to others. I'd rather just take a Voltage Surge or even fixing from the blue-red land. We've got a Voltage Surge and a Rebel Salvo and a Welding Sparks. I'm going to take my first fixing here. Get the perfectly on-color land. For pick 4, Goblin Engineer is really fun. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for an artifact, put it in your grave, then shuffle. And you can spend 1 red, sack an artifact, return an artifact with mana value 3 or less from your grave to the battlefield. So it only picks up the small ones. But if you can get a cheap artifact that somehow spits out another token, then that's kind of perfect. I guess there's not a lot of those. We don't have anything that combos perfectly with it, but it can save like a Steel Overseer or something. I feel like this is still pretty good, right? If you have treasures or clues sitting around, you can reanimate some of your little cheap aggressive artifact creatures. Tomb Raider here is pretty nice. 1 mana 2/2 haste most of the time, but Vault Scourge is also nice. Even if you're not playing black, it's a 1 mana 1/1 flying lifelink. It's a great card to throw all your modular counters onto, as well as your Steel Overseer counters. Yeah, let's talk me into it. If we can get +1/+1 counters onto this thing, it's going to go absolutely absurd in the late game. Pick 6, Tempting Apple's an okay finisher. We could also take a random blue-black duel in case we want to splash in something that costs black. We're always just going to pay the 2 on Vault Scourge, so this doesn't really count, but we could speculate towards that. I'm just going to take the Tempting Apple for a finisher. Pick 7, ooh, another Rebel Salvo? Really efficient removal, but Scrapwork Mud is also fantastic. Blinkmoth Nexus is fun if you're flooding out. Start chipping away with a flyer. I really like Scrapwork Mutt. Excellent card to make sure you're drawing what you need, because you get to discard what you don't need to look for something else. And pick 8. Well, I was going to say, I was pretty certain blue was quite open with how late the Gearseeker Serpent was. Even if this is your first time ever drafting this format, I don't think you pass Dragonwing Glider unless you're not interested in red cards. So Looks like just starting in red has worked out incredibly because that was a pick 8 Dragonwing Glider. Absolutely insane. Really happy with that. Pick 9's nothing we're going to play. Maybe Ambitious Assault. I mean, we have enough modified creatures. This is always going to be +2/+0 to the board and draw a card. So the fact that it always draws us a card means it's definitely not going to be bad. I'm going to take a Voltage Surge over the Assault, though. I mean, after we saw the pick 8 Dragonwing Glider, I should not have been that surprised to see pick 11 Voltage Surge, but still something primal within me just being like, what? Whoa. All right. Well, not every day you get 2 of the same rare to really try to get your deck plan going. Yeah, we're just a ton of artifact creatures, trying to pick up some modular stuff, trying to get one of our Steel Overseers going. If one of them dies, maybe we can get a Goblin Engineer to save one. Now the Goblin Engineer also does work as a tutor for one of the 2 copies of Steel Overseer if we sack a different artifact to bring one back. So that is really fun. Pack 3, pick 2. We are fairly certain red is getting passed like nobody's business. So I think I'm going to take the Great Blue Creature of Oaken Siren and wheel the Enthusiastic Mechanaut. But I think both of these would work great in the deck. I just think Mechanaut is more likely to come back around. And Voltage Surge would be good too, but I think we have enough removal now to not take a 5th removal spell here. Yeah, I mean, usually you only play 7 or 8 non-creature spells. We're at 5 being just removal. I don't know, we'll see. All right, this deck's going to be awesome. I hate having to pass a Gearseeker Serpent for this. I'm okay with passing Welding Sparks because of the amount of removal we have, but Unctus is really good when you're playing pretty much exclusively artifact creatures because it's going to buff your entire board with that +1/+1. You can also use its ability, paying 2 life or a blue, to turn something into a blue artifact in addition to its other types, so that that creature gets both the +1/+1 and the ability to draw a card and discard a card for you. So Unctus is really nice. Pick 4. Get another artifact creature to go with all the Steel Overseers. Chrome Prowler seems fine. Great enter the battlefield effect on that one. Although Phyrexian Revoker is probably better in this format than any of the other times it's been printed, because there are a lot of random abilities. It does say non-land card name, so I don't think you can name like a clue or a treasure. But there are a lot of activated abilities on plenty of artifacts in the format, so I still think it'd be good. Definitely take another Vault Scourge. We've got double Steel Overseer and some modular creatures to go with it. Vault Scourge should be great in this deck. Pick 6, another Tawashi Song Shaper to curve out with a 2-mana artifact creature, but Archaeomender or Plundering Pirate would be fine too. It's just that they're not artifact creatures and we have the double steel, so... and the Unctus. Yeah, I'm going to take the artifact creature over those, even if it is a little less interesting in terms of what it can do off its ability. Definitely take another Scrapwork Mutt. Pick 8, Barbed Batterfist looks pretty good in this deck. Immobilizer's fine. We don't have any ways to proliferate for it, so it will run out of counters. That's the only issue. Otherwise, though, tapping something 4 times is pretty good. But Barbed Batterfist here. 2 mana 2/2 on curve that leaves an artifact on board that we can sacrifice to our Goblin Engineer. That's what I really like about that. Gives us the expendable artifact to sacrifice for that or Voltage Surges. And now we've got Triple Surge. That's really interesting. Somebody took the Enthusiastic Mechanaut, but not Voltage Surge out of that pack. Never would have expected that with how open red was throughout the draft. And blue was certainly less open, but we got like a pick 8 Gearseeker Serpent, pick 3 or 4 Unctus in that last pack, so still really happy with our color pair. So we get to cut 11 cards here. I think I want to cut almost all of our non-artifact creatures. Basically all of them except Gearseeker Serpent. Maybe Archaeomender? I mean, I have 2 Steel Overseer and Goblin Engineer here. I feel like Goblin Engineer is probably just a way better Archaeomender in this deck. So I'm not going to worry about that Graveyard Recursion. But we also have 4 Mirrodin Equipment in this deck. So this is the creature count, because Volshock Splitter is a creature, Dragon Wing Glider is a creature, and Double Batter Fist are as well. So this is tons of creatures. Volshock Splitter, one of the most inefficient, so probably cut that as well. So Gear Seeker's definitely lower on the curve. I'll keep it at 4 mana. I think that's probably around the average there. We are a 2-color deck, so we definitely did not end up needing this Renegade map in the end. Then the Ambitious Assault, we're just not going super wide. Like, we're just casting a bunch of individual creatures. And I think we have more than enough, like, just buffing the whole board permanently to care about the temporary buff for a big swing. So probably cut that. And then I think I need to cut some creatures, because it's 3, 4, 5, 6 non-creature spells. Leaves us with 18 plus 1, 2, 3. 21 creatures right now. Cut 4 of them. We're still at 17 creatures. Pretty much perfect. So yeah, we'll cut 4 of our creatures now. And we've got a lot of 2-mana stuff. I mean, I don't love the Goblin Engineer without some random, very expendable artifacts in the deck. I suppose we'll always have some combos for the Engineer, right? Because we can always unearth a Scrapwork Mutt and sack it to the Engineer in the end step. And this is the kind of ability we're only going to use later in the game anyway, so we don't need something sacrificable to it just instantly. Unless we really want to just insta-grab Steel Overseer off of the search and mill ability. But for this to like take over in a long game, we can get incremental value off of, okay, I unearthed the Mutt and now I sack the Mutt to permanently get back something else. Or I have a 1/2 Cogwork Wrestler sitting here. So we have a few things that are going to work well with it no matter what. I'm just really considering cutting the Batter Fists so that we can go more all in on Steel Overseer and have less creatures that are not artifact creatures. The one issue that I have with that cut is it reduces the amount of things that are really good to sack to Goblin Engineer. But again, there's still 4 cards that are very good to sacrifice to it, and some other cards that are perfectly fine, like if we sack a 2-drop to bring back a really important one like Steel Overseer, that's still a good deal. If we sack a land in the late game, that's incredible. And if we sack one of the 3 modular creatures, that'll also be pretty great. So I think that'll be fine. Yeah, I'm going to cut the Batter Fists. Definitely not going to cut the Dragon Wing Glider, though. I think that card is just too absurd to cut. And still a super huge creature count here. And with the way the mana curve is looking, we've got 3 3-drops, 3 4-drops, and a 5. We could cut 1 or 2 more 2-mana cards. 1 or 2 mana cards. Maybe like 1 of the 4-drops. I don't like that we'd be losing another modular creature, but the Arcbound Whelp up front is definitely less efficient than Arcbound Tracker, like I said when I took it, but again, the fire breathing does put in work, especially on a flyer. I do think Arcbound Tracker is likely just better than this thing, but we don't have many options for modular. I feel like double Steel Overseer is probably busted enough. We don't need to constantly be doing modular combos, so we'll cut 1 of those whelps. Maybe the last cut could even be the second, but I think I'm going to go 1 whelp and 1 like Song Shaper here, meet in the middle. Drop a 2-drop, drop a 4-drop, and check our mana base. Make sure it's pretty much 50-50. It is not. 10 red, 6 blue. Oh, but 2 double blue cards. Yeah, that's pretty important. I'll still leave it 50-50. For the mana base, we've got double Scrapwork Mutts to discard a card, draw a card to help make sure that we don't flood out, so that's really nice. The Goblin Engineer can also make use of the Silver Bluff Bridge if that's one of our excess lands. We've got Unctus to draw cards and discard cards to get out of flood. We can absolutely be a 17-land deck here, even with a relatively aggressive curve. We will call it a deck here. Alright, here's a look at the final deck list for today. We're on a blue-red artifact creature beatdown deck. We are on 17 creatures, 14 of which are artifact creatures, and we have tons of ways to buff all of those artifact creatures up. For some common stuff, we have modular cards that can move the +1/+1 counters to a different artifact creature when they die, but we also have 3 bomb rares that buff our entire board of artifacts. We've got Unctus, buffing up all our artifact creatures and potentially letting us draw and discard some cards if we start using that blue activated ability. And then we've also got some Steel Overseers the card that we were really building around that looks like it'll be super sweet in here. That can put a +1/+1 counter on our entire board every single turn. So if they don't deal with the Steel Overseer real quickly, our board is going to get absolutely massive. And we have a few creatures that really benefit from those +1/+1 counters. Obviously, the modular creatures I was talking about before, because then we move all the counters over when they die, but also some cards like Vault Scourge, making a gigantic flying lifelinker is really busted, as well as an Akin Siren for a gigantic flying vigilant threat. So looks like a really sweet curve of creatures with a lot of explosive stuff there. Plenty of removal to help clear a path and stay alive against opposing bomb rares, with 3 Voltage Surge, a Welding Sparks, and a Rebel Salvo. And last but not least, 1 Ariette's Tempting Apple to get their final blocker out of the way and chip in for that last bit of damage, throwing an apple in their face. So really sweet, really powerful deck. I don't even think I mentioned the insane Dragon Wing Glider we have at the top of the curve. There's just a lot of great stuff going on here, and it should be pretty fun and pretty powerful, but we'll see how it all pans out as we head into the gameplay. All right, let's get things rolling. We are on the draw here, but we got turn 1 Vault Scourge into turn 2 Scrapwork Mutts to do some digging for the red sources. Plenty of castable spells here, even without the Song Shaper, and plenty of ways to dig to what we need, discarding stuff that we can't cast anyway, or just discarding like 3rd and 4th islands. There is a red source, so we've got that immediately, and it's going to be Vault Scourge versus Vault Scourge, but the Vault Scourge on the play slightly better than the Vault Scourge on the draw, so we do start a little behind. They're mono white for now. White has plenty of equipment and stuff that could get pretty nasty. No, not another lifelinker here, turn 2. I'm happy to have Scrapwork Mutt at the very least. That's a great creature to trade into the Justiciar. I've got an Arcbound Whelp coming up, so I am not going to trade Vault Scourge off when I have multiple +1/+1 counters coming up to throw onto it. Arcbound Mouser, that's some counters to throw on the Vault Scourge. And another Arcbound Mouser. Okay, this is really threatening because that's the double trigger on Justiciar. Whew. It's 2 planes and a bunch of 1/2 mana artifact creatures. That could just end the game real quick when you're on the play, and they certainly are. I guess now I have to not attack with Vault Scourge. I have to be open to the possibility of trading that off on blocks this turn. I really need to keep this land, so we'll do that. All right. Now I can trade the other one off. Keep my first one around. If they don't hit another land here and the stuff in their hand is another color or it's 3 mana or more, that does give us some time to potentially try to stabilize here. They do have 4 artifacts on board, so if they have the +2/+1 to everybody that has affinity for artifacts, it's castable here. I don't know if that's in the set, but I bet it is. We'd still kill the Justiciar, so I think this is still our best block. I guess if these 2 are going to die, Mouser just moves to another Mouser, and that's fine. Okay, well, that is horrific. It is in the set. Still just a 2/2 Vault Scourge, which means I can trade my Arcbound Whelp for that and make my Vault Scourge a 3/3. We can still stabilize here despite how wide the difference in life totals is. Oh my god, it is all lifelink over there, isn't it? Obviously I can't attack in here. I could Dragon Wing Glider and then send that in. I'm at 11, so there is a lot of damage we're taking for doing that. I could play Dragon Wing Glider and pass, that's a thing too, but I feel like Steel Overseer on this board is just the better play. No Mutt Reanimation, because the 2 damage to them is completely insignificant. And we don't want to discard a card to draw a card right now, because we needed the 5th land to play for Dragon Wing Glider, and we need the Dragon Wing Glider as well. And this could be a wild deck from our opponent. They might be like a 15 land or 14 land mono white aggro build, all 1 and 2 mana cards. It is kind of popping off here. I will do my thing, I think. Even though I lose the modular creature with a Steel Overseer on board, I feel it's worth it to kill their Scourge when they have 2 modular creatures. Okay. Akin Siren? I do like having basically all artifact creatures when I have Steel Overseer on board. Gain 4... I think it's worth it. I don't think I'm going to block with Steel Overseer. I'm at 12. They only have 5 power on board. There's another Arcbound Mouser. Yeah, this is a scary little white weenie deck there from our opponent. But hopefully a Steel Overseer is too much for that deck. Now we can do some digging. Voltage Surge is a very good one to have. But we don't have the mana up for it right now. That's the one awkward part. Now that Steel Overseer can block as a 3/3, I'm going to just gain 4. I'm not going to gain 5 off this attack, so that I can hold up 2 blockers. Okay, there's the red source. Arcbound Shikari, +1/+1 counter on all their creatures. And that also has modular. That's insane. We've still got solid blocks, but we're only killing modular creatures, which means them making a gigantic Justiciar. It's a 4/3 right now. I would have to lose a creature. I've got a Voltage Surge to hold up to kill it with instead, so I'm going to not lose a creature. I go to 9. Okay, now I can Dragon Wing Glider holding up Voltage Surge. 2 blockers plus Voltage Surge is probably good enough. Let's get all the damage. I forgot about Vigilance. Wow, that was really loose. Let's get all the damage in that we can here. I say as I deal 3 less damage than I should have. We have missed out on 3 points of damage on that one. Okay, Untethered Express is pretty threatening. That keeps getting bigger and bigger the more it attacks. But our board keeps getting bigger and bigger the more it blocks. Or just the more it lasts with Steel Overseer. Yeah, we're still good. If we lose the game while they have 3 or less life, that was on me for being a doofus and forgetting about Akin Siren Vigilance. What a draw. What a beautiful, excellent, incredible, gorgeous draw. I can move the Dragon Wing Glider over to the Vault Scourge to gain a couple more life, but then I'm not getting in for that 2 Rebel damage as well. I could move it to the Steel Overseer. It's not quite lethal yet, but had I dealt 3 more damage to them last turn, it probably would have been lethal that turn. Move Dragon Wing Glider to Overseer and send in 3 flying threats. We would have hit for 4 more damage. They're at 5. It would have been really close to lethal. If I didn't miss out on Akin Siren damage last turn. Either way, we're back up to 20 now, because Steel Overseer Vault Scourge is just a heck of a plan. Dowsing Device? Okay. And they basically have to do 20 damage this turn, so we'll see how they do here. The Dowsing Device insta-flips. Do they have the mana to flip it too? They do have the mana to activate it. That's still not going to be quite 20 yet. Pretty sure. Yeah, it's like 11 trample. It is not enough. Okay, so we block here, block here, don't lose these cards. I don't want to sack something to Voltage Surge. But if I Voltage Surge a modular creature, that's just bad too, right? They're gaining 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 here. They're at 17, essentially. I hit for 4, 10. I hit for more than 17. I'll be fine as long as I don't take lethal. They're going to die anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus 12. Yeah, I'll be fine. Not Voltage Surging, because I would be Voltage Surging something with modular and they'd be hitting for more damage. And then I would be dying, maybe. Or no, they wouldn't be hitting me any harder. They'd just be hitting me just as hard anyway, I guess is the thing. All right. This is 10. Yeah, that's over. Over lethal. Scary game from a really aggressive red-white modular deck, but get there by the skin of our teeth with the really good Steel Overseer Vault Scourge combo. And we're going to start things off 1-0 and into game 2. All right, we are on the draw again. We've got a couple Scrapwork Mutts to dig out of the Mana Flood, so we'll keep it here. Turn 1 Voltage Surge as well. If they play something pretty good, turn 1. I guess turn 1 or turn 2 because we're on the draw. They get to play a 2-mana spell while I'm twiddling my thumbs with 1 mountain. Okay. Sure, I'll shoot a 1/1 flyer to not take a bunch of damage from it over time. It's going to be 4 damage on the first swing next turn. Alright, Scrapwork Mutts, dig me out of this Mana Flood. It is getting scary. There's Chrome Prowler, alright. It's a 3-mana play. Cog Worker's Puzzle Knot. Get some 1/1s to throw all the equipment onto. Fair enough. 2 1/1s off the 1 cards. Pretty annoying. For our little 2/1s, but they do unearth, so I think it's a fairer trade to trade Scrapwork Mutts into these tokens than it is to trade a Voltage Surge into them. Alright, Tempting Apple is a finisher if they want to keep trying to race here and they don't hold the servo up. Tameo is a mobilizer, so that's why they want to try to race. That is 4 turns of tempo. Ooh. Unctus hold up Voltage Surge? Sure thing. Huge damage from Unctus there. Excellent top deck. Danitha? Danitha is going to get very killed here. We cannot let them throw a bunch of equipment onto a lifelinker. A lifelinker with Vigilance and First Strike. So she's always going to win combat and she's always going to be held up as a blocker. So we are shooting the heck out of Danitha. But we'll wait till they spend all their mana moving equipment to her. Alright, we'll do it in the end step. They could have a Metallic Rebuke here, so I could wait till my turn. Spend a blue and improvise 2 to make me counter unless I pay 3. Sure, I'll Voltage Surge and Chrome Prowler instead of Tempting Apple here. I think that's worth it. Like, I guess Tempting Apple could threaten lethal, but it's just way safer to just do this and play around Metallic Rebuke as their last card in hand. Alright, there's the concession from our opponents. And that is a second victory, heading into round 3. Excellent opening hand here, but we are on the draw. Pretty pumped about this game. I'm going to be bummed out if they have the cheap removal here. But I'm kind of interested in Cogwork Wrestler into Overseer into Mutt and getting a counter on all 3 on turn 3. I guess I could play Wrestler and Mutt in the same turn on turn 3, right? I don't have to wrestler right now. I'm still just gonna do it. Just gonna have it on board. They're playing black-white, which is probably removal heavy. Really don't want them to kill this Overseer, but we don't have anything in our hand that pulls removal. None of these are must-deal-with threats except Steel Overseer. Don't look at it like that. Oh, Candy Grapple. Yeah, I forgot Candy Grapple's in here. Incredible removal spell. Glint Sleeve Artisan, and this game is starting off pretty bad, but Goblin Engineer can turn that round real quick. So we cast Goblin Engineer, sacking Cogwork Wrestler to bring back Steel Overseer next turn. I can also do the combo where I can pull out an unearth creature. I can unearth that card, sack it, and get back the Steel Overseer without even sacking something, actually. I'm just sacking an unearth card that was going to die anyway, which is really gross. But since we have the Cogwork Wrestler on board, it's not even going to be that insane. Yahenni with multiple creatures to give it indestructible. That is a nightmare. If it couldn't give itself indestructible, then we'd be fine, but it can. Our only way... If I double block, they have to sack something to give indestructible, and then in response I can Voltage Surge, they have to sack the other card as well, but then we're just killing these two. Yahenni still stays. And we just no block here. Trumping just makes the board bigger, because Yahenni gets bigger when our stuff dies. Unearthing makes their board bigger. Engineering makes their board bigger. We might just get Yahenni'd. This card seems insane against Goblin Engineer. Do not think we won the lottery on this one. If we can find our Tempting Apple, maybe we did. That's probably our best way to win this game, because that Yahenni is going to get really big no matter what we do. And we'll never be able to kill it. So maybe we'll be able to borrow it and kill our opponent with it instead. I really want to Voltage Surge a 1/1 just to get a little more damage in this turn. No. Spire Bluff Bridge? I guess it's another option. Something to sack. We've got more mana. Hold up Wrestler to block the 1/1. This is a free block for our opponent, because if we don't sack the Mutt to the Engineer, then we're not getting our thing back, so they know that we'll have to just do this in response, but maybe they won't see the line and we do get 2 damage in, because there's no reason not to attack. Give our opponent a chance to misplay there. Down to 12. Cloudsteel Kieran. Oh my god, they can put a Cloudsteel Kieran on a Yahenni. Oh, but then we can steal it with Tempting Apple. That is what I said, isn't it? That is the card. Let's Scrapwork Mutt, ditching some of this flood. and finding more of it. Our blockers are getting considerably scarier for our opponent at this point. And I guess we can always just voltage surge the Kieran. We just need to have voltage surge mana up when they try to reconfigure it onto something, so that we can kill it while it's still technically a creature. But they can't give the Kieran indestructible, they can only give Yahenni indestructible. So yeah, if they try to put the Kieran on Yahenni right now, we just instantly basically time walk them. They spend 5 mana and lose Kieran. Skip the turn pretty much. I'd be pretty happy with that outcome. Alright. Oop. Do not sack. There we go. Sure. Indestructible Yahenni for the turn, but it's still a 2/2 that I can just block with a 2/3. So, spend all their mana doing that. They've got probably no way to kill Steel Overseer this turn then, which means we're at least making our board a 3/4 and a 4/3. Just more than enough to block everything on their board right now and take over the late game. We certainly are still flooding, but I think we've got the setup here for greatness. As long as the Overseer sticks around. Chief of the Foundry. Alright, that is fine. If we can get another cheap artifact into our grave, we can Tempting Apple their chief and sacrifice it to return our artifact. So if they end up like killing Steel Overseer and it's still in the grave, we've got plenty of ways to get it back. We can also sack the land, we can sack the Tempting Apple. But I can't like reanimate a Tempting Apple with Engineer, sadly. It is 1 mana value too high, so that's why we're not just trying to do that every turn or anything. Well, no attacks here because we are just playing a land and passing every turn, unfortunately. That's really the only options Arena's given us past few turns. Despite the Scrapwork Mutts doing their best to help us out. Almost missed an Overseer. Tap. Okay, Cogwork Wrestler is pretty good. I will hold 1 land in hand with Scrapwork Mutt that could end up in the grave on board. With a Steel Overseer on board, I will flash in this Cogwork Wrestler in their end step, even if it isn't going to be relevant as a combat trick, just to get more counters onto the board. Toolcraft Exemplar, that's like a 1 mana 3/3 first strike or something? 3/2 first strike? Yep. Pretty gnarly. But not as gnarly as our massive board of artifact creatures. Just send a message, we'll nullify Yahenni for a second. Okay. Still vibing over here. Yeah, the longer we just keep passing to each other, the more favored our board state is. Rebel Salvo. It's interesting. This might be a little greedy, but I think instant speed Revel Salvo on like Chief of the Foundry or something could find some work for the Scrapwork Mutt to do. They do have a wide enough board state that this is a little greedy. because it's a little risky. 5 damage if I kill the Chief of the Foundry. So I get to kill 3 of their creatures. That was the goal of the attack. So the greed was potentially good if they don't have a trick in hand. Yep, the greed got a 3 kill here. Yep, holding the land in hand, so we just pass. And if the Scrapwork Mutt died, if they went too hard on it or anything, then we can always just reanimate the Scrapwork Mutt, which is fine, so. Ooh, Lion Sash is very good against the Goblin Engineer. And just really good in general. Lots of +1/+1 counters. They can reconfigure it onto other stuff to give +1/+1 to whatever they equip it to for each counter on it, which can be pretty big at this point. Got a couple lands. That's 2 permanents, and they've got 3 artifact creatures, 5 permanents to buff with the Lion Sash. Oh, they don't have enough artifacts for the first strike anymore? Brutal. $12 life. I'm gonna keep sending in the biggest attacker, but holding up 4 blockers. Boom, down to 11. Time for that Lion Sash to start sashing around. It's going to be like a +5/+5 is what we calculated. Large equipment. Well, this is suspicious. Can't make that thing 9 power as far as I know. There's 3 more. They can make it 8 power. They need an additional trick. Ooh, they could sacrifice an artisan to Yeheni and then also exile that to get the trade here. Again, not the kill, but the trade. But I would still be killing another creature off their board. This is a solid line from our opponent. Gotta do something to try to stop our counters from going and going. They're going to sack both to try to keep the Exemplar around. They're going to go big, yeah, sack both to keep the Exemplar. Now they're down to 11, and the Tempting Apple is looking pretty real. They probably unconfigure to have another blocker, and then I take the Sash itself. Sack the Sash to get back the Wrestler, worst case scenario. Best case scenario, kill them with it. Oh, that's right. If they move the Sash anywhere, then the creature dies. So even my play of just unconfiguring the Sash wouldn't have worked out how they wanted. All right. Well, we can definitely just apple the Yeheni and kill them then. All right. We are, what, 3-1 right now? Something like that. Heading into round 5. All right, here we are on the play with no blue source, but some really powerful cards. We get to Vault Scourge into Overseer again, so I'm going to keep. There are 3 castable spells here, and they are a really nice squadron. Really nice dream team here. Really Scourge and Overseer being the good stuff, but Song Shaper's another artifact creature too. So he can absolutely tag along, and there's the blue source making the hand insane in the membrane. As long as they don't kill Overseer immediately, we are going to be getting a +1/+1 counter onto 4 creatures next turn. Sure. Song Shaper. Send in the Vault Scourge. I could Overseer right now to hit for 2 and gain 2, but I think it'll be a little bit better to try to Cogwork Wrestler kill Halberd if they go for any attacks here. They probably won't, but we're only missing out on 1 point of damage, 1 point of life gain, which is not that much, not that impactful. All right. Yeah, sure. You got it. Still buff the important creatures. And draw into Welding Sparks. I would rather Chrome Prowler than Welding Sparks right now. Actually tap the Crab here to get more damage in. I think I actually tapped the Crab here, since the 2/2 can't kill the Song Shaper anyway. Alright, I'm not playing this land when we have multiple Scrapwork Mutts in the deck to discard a card and draw a card. Stern Lesson, draw 2, discard 1, get a Power Stone. Doesn't impact the board in terms of attackers and blockers, so it's definitely not great for our opponent. Yeah, we're in an aggressive enough position. I should just shoot the 2/2 so that Prowler can get in without trading. We need to just push damage here when we have no more spells to try to push card advantage in the late game or anything. Going for immediate damage, trying to close out the game before our opponent casts too much stuff to stabilize. And here's a good start. 2 mana removal. They've got 3 mana up to do on other stuff, and it's Unctus, which is really good. A 2/4 blocker. Okay, well that's a stupid draw. That is a lethal draw too, right? I believe it is. Got enough life to just pay the life on Unctus on all this stuff, but... Okay, yeah, there's the concession. Yeah, it actually doesn't matter, because if I turn my stuff into blue artifact creatures, it doesn't change anything. Because they already get +1/+1 for being artifact creatures. So they have a single blocker, they block there, they take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, that is way over lethal, actually. So we are now 4-1 heading to round 6. We are now for round 6, turn 2 Steel Overseer, never gonna mulligan that. But it is kind of low on creatures, just 1 Overseer, 1 Tracker. No, the turn 3 Vault Scourge. I mean, you just gotta get the Overseer out and get its Summoning Sickness out of the way. Barbed Spike, that is not immediate removal for Overseer. You love to see it. Play the Arcbound Tracker. Next turn we get to play a Vault Scourge and a Voltage Surge in the same turn to trigger the Tracker and get an extra counter out of it. Rabbit Battery. Haste Equipment. It's the Energizer Bunny and Cogworker's Puzzle. If they had their own Steel Overseer, it'd be pretty wild right now. 3 creatures on their board. Take 2 in the sky. We buff the board. This Arcbound Tracker is going to be absolutely wild. Scrapwork Mutt was an excellent draw. So I can cast 2 spells without having to cash in my Voltage Surge. Definitely worth it. All right. This is nutty. We've cast a lot of Steel Overseers today, but we do have 2 in the deck, so we do see them often, statistically speaking. Couple flying damage, that's a-okay with me. With an Arcbound Tracker on board, I'd be somewhat excited to cast 2 Voltage Surges in the same turn. So when I don't need to kill that thing right now, I'm just going to not kill that thing right now. Go team, go! I have tons of removal if they find a block that looks really bad for me. Oh, they're going to try to kill me on the crackback? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Can make this 14 damage, so I can't kill them. But I'm at 17. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 damage on board. They need to try to give the whole board +2, +1 or something, and in response I can kill multiple creatures and live. It's probably their plan here. They try to give the whole board +2, +1, and I kill Cohort and the Thopter. And then I take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh no. They do not go for lethal this turn. They just turtle up hardcore. Which means we just kill the flyer and win then. Voltage Surge the flyer. Send in the Vault Scourge, and that is game. We are now officially in the money. Very positive win rate here at 5 wins, leaving with at least 1,600 gems out of the 1,500 gem event. All right, here we are on the play. This is one of our slowest hands yet. We only have 2 artifacts to make the Gear Seeker cheaper. The Arcbound Whelp's a pretty slow card. I feel like this is just a huge underperformance. This seems too expensive and dirtily. I'm gonna keep it. We know that our deck can hit much stronger hands than this, but this is still solid mana. It is still playing a good 2-drop. It has a great removal spell for interaction. But I think it's one of our weaker hands we could draw. So there is temptation to mulligan there for sure. Ingenious Smith, busted card. It's a 2-mana creature that you basically have to kill or it's going to become insanely big, and you're down a card when you kill it because it draws them a card when it hits the board. So, pretty annoying stuff. Now they've got an Arcbound Shikari. That's pretty bad right now. They have no artifacts on board, no artifact creatures. But when they draw it off the Ingenious Smith, it's pretty solid still. Well, they're still just going to play it. All right. 2/2 first strike. Tempted to Welding Sparks that before they play any other artifact creatures, plus I can't attack into that. But then I have no removal for Ingenious Smith, which could be a big issue. I think I'm gonna do this anyway. Kill that before they can move the modular counters, and just try to outrace here. Cogwork Wrestler. Cool card, not extremely helpful here. I guess I could try to get a Wrestler kill on Ingenious Smith later, but we're definitely playing Arcbound Whelp for now. I could play Cogwork Wrestler and Gearseeker Serpent in the same turn, but that would require a sorcery speed Cogwork Wrestler. I guess I can still cast it during combat, but it's a Cogwork Wrestler I have to cast during my turn. Ooh, captured by Lagax. Once again, the strongest removal in this format by a country mile. Just gotta be green-white for it. Well, if we hit a Voltage Surge, our Arcbound Whelp is still excellent. Alright, I have to just play this Gearseeker Serpent and hope they can't kill it, because otherwise I'm not blocking at all. I mean, I could try to do Cogwork Wrestler blocks. But they would be multi-blocks for sure. Play both Cogwork Wrestlers to make Songshaper 4 power. I would still have to block with Songshaper and a Wrestler if they play a single artifact for the Ingenious Smith. They did not play a single artifact, though. They did gain life, which is annoying. If they didn't gain life, unblockable Gear Seeker's starting to get very spicy. Wow, yeah, that's just the perfect roadblock for Gear Seeker Serpent. One more power. Or one more toughness than Gear Seeker Serpent has power. Yeah, we actually just don't have any plays here. We have reactive plays if they go for it, if they go for swings and stuff, but if we just sit here staring at each other, they've got 3 cards up on us. Thanks to this being a 2-for-1 and this being a 2-for-1. Okay, this Shikari is also the only artifact creature on board, so again, it's not that crazy. Buffs to Smith, which is decent. Ooh, okay, Contagious Vorak for the Proliferate is pretty crazy. Yeah, that's nasty. Well, Cogwork Wrestler Dream Team. If I play 2 of them, I have a 4-power Song Shaper, 2 Wrestlers. If I just play 1 of them, I can already kill one of these 2 creatures while only losing 1 of mine. So we can kill the Ingenious Smith and just lose a Cogwork Wrestler. If I cast another Cogwork Wrestler, then Song Shaper's 4 power, the Wrestler's 1, and I only have 5 power to put underneath the Glutton anyway. So we don't have a good double Wrestler lock. We just have to span these out over the course of a couple turns. Down to 5, that is not great. Tempting apple. It's interesting. It's not really enough to do much right now. Got just multiple blockers still left here. Yeah, we just don't do anything. If we had our Goblin Engineer or a Voltage Surge, stealing their artifact creature would be kind of spicy. Steal it, sack it to move its counters onto our Song Shaper. After, of course, also getting an attack out of it, potentially. Alright, well, might be just death here. I'm at 5 life. If I try to Wrestler, kill the Glutton... Song Shaper then trades into Vorak and we die. We can only block 1 other creature. Shoot, yeah, I can't Wrestler kill a Glutton. That is a huge bummer. Just don't have enough life. I have to block 3 separate creatures to not die. Basically almost all on chumps here. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Don't think it matters. I mean, I've got to stop a bunch of Glutton damage, so we might as well let us keep our Gear Seeker Serpent, but this is a bummer. Well, that is dead. There's a couple cards we could have drawn throughout this matchup that would have been insane. Obviously, Vulture Surges with the Whelp under the Captured Biogax to kill one of these blockers and get counters on another one of our creatures at instant speed 2. Probably would have been game-winning if we just drew a single Voltage Surge. I think that's the biggest thing we could have hit here earlier. Yeah, 2 life, no way to sack any of the stuff we steal. Yeah, just send a message. Close game, but no cigar. Just too many 2-for-1 incredible value plays from our opponents. Brings them just a few cards ahead that they needed to be to win by 2 life. Really close one. Here we are for round 8 Unkeepable hand, sadly. Forced mole to start it off. That's another one that's very close to a forced mole. Hopefully it doesn't all end like this for us, and we can find the red source. But I will keep with a scrapwork mutt to dig. An arcbound tracker. Really needing that red source. Ditching a blue source because we need it that badly. Oh no. We are on a 50-50 split on our colors, so these mono-colored hands are real unlikely and super unfortunate. Alright, well, no game of Magic was had, really. But can't do much else here. I mean, we can mull to 5 and start way behind. But what are you going to do? I think the odds of this 6-card hand finding a red source or blue spells instead of red spells, we have top decked 2 red spells, which is not helpful, is decent enough. We just took a chance and got the very bad end of variance for this opener. The very, very bad end of variance. Wow. Alright, you got me. Just goes to show you can have a really sick deck with the double Steel Overseer, Unctus kind of stuff, and you can still get got by variance. You can still absolutely lose some games of Magic with really, really powerful decks. I mean, we got at least our 5 wins. We are definitely up in value. We had a very positive win rate with this deck. Super happy to have that at the very least, but I do think that this is a deck that is absolutely capable of a 7-win run. Just hit some bad variants, and there's not too much else to say about it. For biggest over and underperformers, like, again, it's not perfect, and there are things we could have changed here. Arcbound Whelp just kind of sucked. The 4 mana is just a little bit too much. I still liked the idea of the Arcbound creatures, the modular creatures that go with the Steel Overseers. I just would have very much preferred a second Arcbound tracker to the Arcbound Whelp. And I think that we drafted 2 of them. We drafted them mildly highly. I do think we drafted like one of these over another Arcbound tracker, but this was expensive enough and slow enough that I would have preferred to play just another decent 2 or 3 mana artifact creature over it. Like, not quite a Song Shaper, but something a little better than that. But I do think there were better options in the packs than the Arcbound Whelps. Now that I've had some experience playing with it, it just feels too slow. So that is definitely the biggest underperformer. For the biggest overperformer, I don't know, everything was pretty incredible. Maybe Goblin Engineer, because the Unearth combo is pretty sick with it. Being able to search for your Unearth card, then unearth that to sack that to bring back your Overseer. But we already knew the Goblin Engineer was going to be sick. But yeah, I think literally everything else in the deck is pretty much perfect. Song Shaper's not like the scariest card ever. And Chrome Prowler's just kind of a tempo way to get a little bit more damage in. But like this collection of cards right here is just an incredible, like definitely capable of a 7-win kind of deck. These are the only cards that I would put as kind of the filler of the deck. The only one I'd say is bad filler is the Arcbound Whelp, so kind of a disappointing run, even at 5 wins. Like, obviously 5 wins is really solid, but sucks to lose a couple games to variance and be out of contention for the deck that definitely could have gotten a 7-win. I think this is better than some of those decks we got our, like, 7-win streak with, where we had multiple decks in a row with the 7 wins, so is what it is. Definitely a part of Magic, certainly happens, and there's not much you can do about it. Still a sweet deck, still had a lot of fun playing it, and still a great day of Magic. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching this video. If you're interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.